A March night in the Afghan mountains, an altitude of over 3,000 meters. The wind cuts to the bone, and all around, only rocks, snow, and darkness. Up there, among the frozen stones, one man was left completely alone. His comrades thought he was dead, but he stood up to keep fighting. This isn't a movie. This isn't a novel. This is reality captured by a drone camera, a story that was nearly forgotten, rewritten, and buried. But it can't be hidden anymore, because the truth is far more terrifying and majestic than any fiction. March 4th, 2002. Operation Anaconda, the height of the Afghanistan campaign. The mission, to drive Al-Qaeda fighters out of the Shah-i-Kot Valley. Among the elite units, a team of Navy SEALs and one man wearing the insignia of the Air Force. John Chapman, combat controller. Communications, coordinating air support, calling in strikes, it was all on him. But on Takur Ghar mountain, he became something more. He became the last shield between the enemy and his team. Their task was originally simple: establish an observation post at the summit. But before the landing, the helicopter came under fire. One of the men, Neil Roberts, fell from the aircraft. His team didn't know, was he alive? A quick decision was made: go back and try to rescue him. They didn't know that Roberts was already dead. They didn't know the summit was crawling with enemy fighters. And they didn't know that within a few hours, John Chapman, not a commando, not a commander, but an air controller, would become the central figure in the most desperate and brutal clash of the operation. When the team landed, they were met with a storm of gunfire. One of the first to engage, Chapman. He didn't just return fire, he attacked. Single-handedly, he stormed a fortified bunker. At a distance of just a few meters. A grenade. A burst of fire. A full clearance. The entire team was given a chance to breathe. But that was just the beginning. Minutes later, he was seriously wounded. He fell. The team believed he was dead. Under fire, they made the decision to retreat. They left, and he remained near. Time passed. On the drone feed, a figure, rising, unsteady, struggling. He grabbed his weapon and went back into the fight, alone, against many. What happened next remained in the shadows for a long time. Reports stated he died a hero, but that he continued to fight after being left behind, few knew. And when the truth began to emerge, a conflict broke out between two branches of the armed forces. Because if Chapman was alive, it meant he was abandoned. And in elite units, that is unforgivable. He lay in the snow, wounded, blood freezing on his uniform, his ears ringing from explosions, from pain, from isolation. In such moments, a man can give up, but he stood up. At first, slowly, almost blindly, then, weapon at the ready. All around, enemies. To the right, a bunker. To the left, a machine gun nest. Ahead, the path the second helicopter was supposed to take. He understood. If the enemy wasn't stopped now, no one would survive. Not him, not those still on the way. He walked, waist deep in snow, alone, without support, fighting almost hand to hand. In footage from the drone, later restored by Air Force specialists, it is clear he moves, he opens fire again and again. Several times he steps out of cover and shoots first. He knew that every shot he fired could mean the lives of others. And it didn't last minutes, it went on for almost 1 hour. When the second helicopter approached, the militants opened fire again. An RPG struck the fuselage. The aircraft was damaged but did not crash. Why? Because by that time, Chapman had already suppressed the enemy positions. He alone cleared the landing zone. He alone provided at least some safety for those who came as reinforcements. Later, when the fighting stopped, Chapman's body was found on the slope. Empty magazines nearby. Blood trails, stretching almost from the summit. His body armor, riddled with holes, more than a dozen wounds. But most importantly, he did not retreat. Not by a single meter. He was posthumously awarded the Air Force Cross, one of the highest honors, and promoted to the rank of Master Sergeant. Back in 2002, it seemed the story was over. A hero had died, was honored, and that was it. But that was only the beginning. Years passed. The Air Force began to re-examine the drone footage, and they saw what once seemed impossible. Chapman, having fallen and presumed dead, gets up. Again and again, the cameras capture his movements, his gunfire, his maneuvers. He didn't just lie there to the end. He fought. This fact became a turning point. The Air Force leadership began an official procedure to reconsider the award. And in 2018, 16 years after his death, John Chapman was awarded the Medal of Honor, the highest military decoration in the United States. This decision sparked a conflict that still stirs debate in military circles. The Navy SEALs were furious, because the very essence of this award carried a direct rebuke. Their teammate had been alive, and they had left. The facts supported it. The video left no doubt. But in a world where unit honor is above all, such recognition feels almost like a condemnation. Nevertheless, the truth prevailed. The president personally presented the Medal of Honor to Chapman's family. And at that moment, the story went beyond the boundaries of a typical combat account. It became a symbol that true valor is not about rank and medals, but about action. One against many. When there is no one left to count on, when even your own have gone. In the history of the United States Air Force, there are only a few like John Chapman. He became the fourth in the entire history of the service to receive the Medal of Honor. And that's not just a statistic. It's a reflection of how hard it is to earn such a distinction, and how extraordinary the act must be to be recognized at that level. Before him there was William Pitsenbarger, 1966, Vietnam. He descended from a helicopter into enemy fire to evacuate wounded soldiers. When it became clear that the helicopter couldn't return, he stayed on the ground. He fought until he ran out of ammunition, died covering others. His story also remained in the shadows for a long time. Only in the year 2000, more than 30 years later, was his Air Force Cross upgraded to the Medal of Honor. Next came Richard Etchberger, Laos, the year 1968. He wasn't a Special Forces soldier, wasn't an officer. He was a technician. But when their secret base came under attack, he picked up a weapon and began pulling the wounded out under fire. His actions made it possible to save those who otherwise would have remained there forever. He died the same day. He was awarded the medal only in the year 2009. And John Levito, 1969, Vietnam. The aircraft was hit and a white phosphorus flare round was already on board. He was full of shrapnel wounds but somehow found the strength to grab the munition and throw it out the door just fractions of a second before it exploded. He survived and became the first living enlisted Air Force member to receive the Medal of Honor. Each of these stories is not just an example of courage. They are stories that were nearly forgotten, or, at the very least, kept quiet, because they break the mold, because they show that a hero is not always the one you expect. Not a commander, not special forces, not part of the elite, but an ordinary guy. A controller, a technician, an enlisted man. Chapman's case is especially painful, because it clearly shows how, inside the system, battles can unfold. Not for the truth, but for prestige. The Navy SEALs, whose reputation in the military is nearly untouchable, could not accept that their man had left, and another had stayed. Because that called into question not just their decision, but the entire chain of command. And yet, recognition came. The Medal of Honor on John Chapman's chest became a symbol for all Air Force service members. Your act of valor might be forgotten, but the truth will find its way. Even if it takes years, even if it comes through scandal, even if it sparks internal conflict, it will find its way. And now, only one question remains. Who will be next? Today, the ranks of the Air Force include many whose actions deserve the highest recognition. But the years go by, because it's not enough to perform a heroic act. Someone must speak out. Someone must push, as they pushed for Chapman, as they fought for Pitsenbarger, Etchberger, and Levito. The story of John Chapman is not just an episode of combat. It is a mirror reflecting everything: courage, pain, honor, and injustice. It shows what a person is capable of if they believe in what they're doing, even if they are alone, even if they've been left behind, even if there is no chance. But it also raises a question: why do we remember such people only decades later? Why must their acts be dragged out of the archives, reconstructed from footage, from fragments of reports, from silent testimonies? Why isn't the system ready to recognize the truth right away? Because the truth is uncomfortable. It casts a shadow on others. It forces a reevaluation of roles and titles we take for granted. But without that truth, we lose the essence. We turn heroism into a template, a form, a tradition without substance. Chapman could have been anyone, and in every unit, there are those who did the impossible, who took fire to protect others, who saved comrades, who fought to the end. But maybe no one knows about them yet, because they stay silent, or because there is no one to speak for them. Today, we remember John Chapman not to ignite disputes between branches of service, not to cast blame, but to remember, to acknowledge that a true hero is not a loud name, but a selfless act. And if we forget that, we lose not only the memory, we lose the military itself, as it is meant to be. His name is now in textbooks, his likeness cast in bronze. His story lives in the hearts of thousands of Air Force personnel who wear the uniform today. But the question remains, who is next? Who have we not yet heard? Who remains in the shadows? Who, like Chapman, deserves to be known, not only by fellow service members, but by the entire nation? Answering that question is our task, yours and mine. Because history is not written only on the battlefield. It is written by those who tell the truth, who refuse to let memory fade, who preserve it. And if you've watched this video to the end, then you are one of those who care. Then memory is alive, and that is what matters most.